Shalom Aleichem, brothers. Assalamu alaikum. Irini Mazisu, Pax Vobiscum. Peace be unto you, beloved. And welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at 1 Shmuel, chapter 10, or 1 Samuel in the English. I do recognize it is called 1 Kingdoms in the original texts. And there are 27 verses in this chapter. Beginning in verse 1, we have an omission. And this is the omission. It says, "And you," referring to Shaul or Saul, "and you shall save them," Israel, "out of the hand of their enemies," the Philistines. "And this shall be the sign to you, that Yah, or Adonai, has anointed you for a ruler over his inheritance." So what is that sign? Well, that sign of his anointing is mentioned or is described in verse 2, talking about the two men that he is to find. Okay, you shall find two men by the burial place of Rachel, or Rachel, on the mount of Binyamin. So that is the sign, and that was omitted from the Masoretic. Verse 2, we have a significant difference. It says here, exalting greatly. So these two men will be exalting greatly. Versus they will be at Zelzah. Next it says anxious. He is anxious for you, your father. Versus he sorrows for you. So one is concerned. Versus one is sad. Verse 4, they will ask you how you do. Asking your welfare, how are you doing? Versus saluting you, just greeting you. Verse 7, it shall come to pass. Versus let it be. So this is describing to Saul, this is what will happen. But you have a role to play. You have to do something. It says do whatsoever your hand shall find. So there is a part for him. He's to participate. In the Masoretic, it doesn't seem to allude to that. It just says, let it be. However, it does say, do you, but the opening expression there, let it be, just seems to imply that just let things play out, not to look forward to these signs that are going to happen, that shall come to pass. So the wording in the Masoretic, you could make an argument that, let things happen. Saul, let things happen. You have no role to play. You're merely a witness. But if you continue reading, you see that, no, he has a part to play. But the opening words don't seem to imply that. Whereas in the Septuagint, these are the signs that are going to happen. These are the things that are going to happen. It shall come to pass. And you have a part to play. Okay, in verse 11, it talks about how Saul is in the midst of the prophets. Versus he prophesied. So which is correct? Well, they're both correct, but if you look in verse 10 of the Septuagint, it makes this verse 11 in the Masoretic redundant, because it says here that he, Saul, prophesied in the midst of them. It also says that in verse 10 of the Masoretic as well. So it is redundant. Notice it's repeated twice. In verse 12, a significant difference here. It says, his father. One of them answered and said, who is his father? Versus who is their father? So one is referring to who is the father of Saul, versus who is the father of the prophets. And they most likely do not come from the same father, unless they're all brothers, which is doubtful. Verse 14, kinsman versus uncle in the Masoretic. So nearest of kin is what it means, versus an uncle, which is the brother of your mother, or brother of your father. Verse 19, the expression is your deliverer, versus saved you. So deliverer is a title that describes who Elohim is and what he does versus an action. He just saved you. There is no title associated with Elohim here. There's an omission of no. You said no. That's a powerful word, no. It was inserted here, but it's not actually part of the original Masoretic. They inserted it to make sense of this. And where did they get that from? The Septuagint, most likely. Verse 21, we have another omission. It says here, by lot. The family of Matari is taken by Lot. And we're going to do a video on lots today as well. So stay tuned for that video. What are lots? Are they scriptural? And so on. I think the answer is obvious. They are scriptural, but the question is, what are they? How do you do it? And so on. So by lot was omitted. So that is an important fact, piece of evidence that needs to be taken into account as to how the family of Matri was taken, or Matari. They weren't just taken. There was a process that was undertaken. In this case, casting of lots. And we see that throughout the historical record of scriptures for millennia, more than 1,000 years, they are casting lots being used to determine the will of Elohim. Okay, verse 24, there's an omission of to himself. So Adonai, or Yah, has chosen Saul, not just chosen him, but to himself. He's chosen him as a king to rule over his people, Israel. Okay. Next, it says here, there's an expression that we still use today, especially in Great Britain. They say, God save the king or queen or whoever's in power. But in the Septuagint, they don't use that expression. They use the expression, let the king live, which is more to the point. It's more straightforward. That's what they mean. God save the king from what? What are you saving him from? But let the king live makes sense. You're saying give good health to the king. Let the king prosper. Let the king be protected, and so on. It's like a blessing to say that. But God save the king sounds a little foreboding, like you're predicting something bad would happen to the king. Verse 25, a significant difference. It says here, Samuel told the people of Israel the manner of the king versus the manner of the kingdom. So Samuel is telling the people, perhaps, I'm just extrapolating here, or speculating, the king's duties, what the king is supposed to do, what the king represents, but talking about the king only, not the kingdom, not everybody's duties or what is expected of them, perhaps. Verse 26, it says here, Saul, there went with Saul mighty men versus band of men. So these aren't just any average men, they are mighty men. 27, it says evil men versus children of Belial. You see that continuous difference throughout both translations. And another significant difference in the same verse, it says, who is this man that shall save us? Versus how shall this man save us? So they're asking, identify the man who will save us. These are evil men, most likely men who do not have faith, do not trust Elohim that he would save them. So they're asking, who is this man? Versus how shall this man? I mean, they're both doubtful, but one, the Septuagint, they're asking, they don't know the identity. So show us the man, identify the man, the king, or whoever, maybe not the king, but just who will save us. Versus how shall this man? So they know who the king is, they know who the man is, but they are doubtful as to his abilities. How is he going to pull this off? Okay, and an addition in verse 27, an addition is, but he, talking about Saul, held his peace. So it doesn't say that in the original text. So thank you very much for your time. Hope that was helpful to you. This is 1 Kingdoms chapter 10 or 1 Samuel chapter 10. Till next time, we're actually going to do a video on lots, what those are. Is it scriptural and so on. So stay tuned for that. Till next time, I do bid you all, beloved, Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum, Eirini Mazisu, Pax Vobiscum, and peace be unto you. Maranatha.